Hello everyone! Today we are upcycling some clothing and trying out different methods for adding logos and graphics. And as a little teaser, one of the stencils that we're using today I custom designed, and it is of a horror icon who you may recognize. We'll keep it a secret for now, but I think you're gonna like it. If you're new here, my name is Leah, and this is a place for you if you like horror, cosplay, sci-fi, anime, video games, and so much more. If you are a geek of any kind, join in by subscribing and turning on the notifications. We would love to have you. And now let's upcycle some clothing. If you're unfamiliar with the term upcycling, it's something I absolutely love to do. Taking a piece of clothing and modifying it by cutting it, sewing it differently. It is a great way to express creativity and fashion in your own unique way. And the upcycling that we are going to focus on today is stenciling to create graphics or logos on your clothing. And one of the methods that we're going to be using is acid wash. This is actually what gave me the idea for this video. A really long time ago, I watched a video on acid washing in order to put logos on your clothes. And that method is putting the stencil down on the clothing, adding bleach to the exposed fabric on the stencil, which will lighten the fabric. And then when you take the stencil off, you will have the graphic or logo left behind. I have acid washed before, but I've only used the tie-dye method. I've never used stencils before, so this will be a fun new endeavor for me. I've always loved that stenciled lettering look. The Rent logo immediately comes to mind. And ever since watching that first video, it's always something I've wanted to try myself. I have so many plain clothing items that could use a little spruce up, like an acid wash logo. And in addition to acid wash, I've always been into graffiti style art. So I also want to try some stenciling with fabric spray paint. So I picked out 5 clothing items, came up with some designs for them that either used acid wash or spray painting. First, we have this oversized gray hoodie. I actually bought this sweatshirt right after I watched that first acid wash video with the intention of trying it, and I never did, but no time like the present. So the plan for this sweatshirt is to add some lettering to the front using acid wash. And we are going to make this say Pretty Hate Machine, which is a 9 Inch Nails album that I love, and also a cute way to describe myself. Next, also for acid washing, we have this cropped gray sweatshirt. I promise not all of the clothing items we are working on today are gray. And for this item, I custom drew a stencil. It's not the horror icon though. I made these drips that I thought could look really cool on the front of this sweatshirt. So I'm going to print out this design, trace it onto a sheet of blank stencil paper, and make my own custom stencil. So fun! This sweatshirt will also have some lettering. Down the sleeve, we are going to make it say Memento Mori. I didn't know what that meant, but this was an idea from Kelly, and the phrase came up in a book that I was reading, which is a book that she's also read and really liked. So I wasn't originally sold on this idea, but then when it came up in the book, I was really excited and I wanted to try it. So Memento Mori is Latin for Remember You Must Die. And if you're curious, the book I'm talking about is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. If you're interested in sexy fantasy mystery novels, I highly recommend it. I'm also curious how this design will look using spray paint. So we have this white sweatshirt, and we're going to do the same drips on the front and the Memento Mori on the sleeve, but instead of bleach, we are going to use black spray paint. It'll be interesting to see the same design using a different method to see if one works better than the other. Okay, I'm not much of a skirt person, but I have this denim skirt. I think it could use a little bit of flair. I'm a big fan of butterflies, so I picked up a butterfly stencil set, and this will again be using the black spray paint, and we'll add some butterflies to the skirt. This is the item I'm the most skeptical about. I think it might turn out to be a little juvenile looking, but if I can create something cute and it just happens to not be my style, then I can donate it and someone else can love it. And last, I've teased it a few times now, and I will say I'm the most nervous about this item because I really, really want it to look good. I custom drew a pinhead stencil using the Jamie Clayton version, which is no disrespect to Doug Bradley. I am a huge Hellraiser fan and I think he is incredible, but I wanted to give a nod to the reboot of this series with Jamie Clayton, who I also think is really amazing. And I wanted to show my support for the continuation of the Hellraiser series, and please give us more movies. And I have this beige tank top, which I think will look so cool with a pinhead logo on the front, which we are going to be applying with black spray paint. So all the clothing and designs are set. Now it is time to cut out all of my custom stencils. Also, massive apology. I know that the next footage of me cutting out the stencils is upside down. Listen, I'm still learning how to set shots well. Just bear with me, okay? I promise it'll look better next time. It will not be upside down, but right now it will be upside down, which will just make the final reveal all that much more exciting. So you're welcome. Let's start with Pretty Hate Machine. I bought a pack of letter stencils, but it only came with one letter a piece. Rather than buying a whole new set, I had all of these blank stencil sheets and I thought it would be easy to just cut out any of the extra letters that I needed. It was surprisingly much easier than I thought it was going to be. And some of these letters you see here are for Memento Mori as well. And once I was done cutting these stencils, I realized I needed an extra H for Pretty Hate Machine, so I went back and cut that extra H. And once the letters were cut out, I taped them together and I placed them on the shirt. I did the eyeball method, which I love. Why be accurate when you can just use your eyeballs? But do as I say, not as I do. I recommend measuring just to make sure that your stencil is straight and centered. I ain't got time for that, so I just eyeballed it. Also, if you are using bleach, make sure that you are putting a layer between your fabrics so that it does not bleed onto the backside of your clothing item. So in between the sweatshirt layers, I have a piece of cardboard. Bleach is extremely fast acting, so if you get this bleach on any part of the clothing, it will start to change the color. So once I felt like the stencil was centered, I taped it down and got to spraying. For this item, I didn't really want to be neat with it. I definitely wanted the bleach to affect the letters inside the stencils, but also the fabric around the stencils as well. So I'm using this misting spray bottle that has a watered down bleach solution in it. And I'm dabbing the fabric in between sprays just to make sure it doesn't get overly saturated, because then the bleach could bleed past the stencil lines. If you just use straight up bleach, it will change the fabric very, very quickly, and it actually might eat through the fabric. So it's better to water it down, go slow, be patient, and watch the color change. This came out exactly how I wanted it to. I'm super excited with the final result. If I'm being nitpicky, the only thing I would maybe do differently would be to make sure that the letters were taped together more securely. In some places, you can see where the letters were jointed together, but it doesn't really matter to me. It's not terribly obvious that that's a mistake, and I'm going to be wearing the out of this sweatshirt. All right, one item down, and I'm feeling really good. Back to the stenciling board. We already cut out the extra letters for Memento Mori, so now we just have to cut out this custom drip. I'm going to be using the outline of the drip so that the actual shape of the drip will be the part of the shirt that changes colors. And this, we want to be a little bit more neat with it, so I'm going to try a different method. If I use the misting spray bottle, there is a chance that the bleach will go all over and affect the edges of the stencil. And we don't want that. We only want the drip to change colors. So I'm going to be using a paintbrush. I used the same watered down solution. Maybe it wasn't exact measure. I mean, no, it definitely wasn't exact measurements. I didn't measure it. I just sort of poured it. So yeah, there is a chance that the solution was slightly stronger than what I had in the mist bottle because it changed significantly faster. I wasn't even done painting through the entire design and it was already changing pretty quickly. I will say I do love how this color was coming out. This orangey red color kind of looked like blood drips, which, you know, it's a spooky channel here. You know we like blood. The painting method was a little difficult. It was hard to get the color super super even. And I really think that's just a preference thing. For me, though, yes, I wanted this to be neat as far as being in the confines of the stencil and not misting out like I did on the Pretty Hate Machine sweatshirt. There is still like this cool vintagey effect that happens when the acid wash isn't the exact same tone. So I did really like how the front blood drip came out. I would definitely try this method again, but the second time I used this method for the memento mori on the sleeves, it didn't work. And I'm a little confused as to what happened, but I have theories. After I did the logo on the front, I hand washed the front of the fabric just to make sure all the bleach came out. If you leave the bleach sitting on there, it will continue to change color and it may eat through the fabric. So I washed it, I dried it, I came back, I put the stencils on, I used the exact same solution. It was sitting out on my desk. I was painting it on and it was not changing color. The only thing I can think is because it was sitting out, maybe it separated, maybe it evaporated. I have no idea. But this was the exact same solution and it was not changing color. I got impatient, which I know I said not to do, but I got impatient. I took some bleach cleaning spray and I sprayed it directly on the fabric. It changed instantly, but at this point, the fabric was so saturated that when I pulled the stencil off, it had bled significantly. Again, unlike the Pretty Hate Machine letters, I wanted this to be neater. I didn't want to see any of the square stencil around the letter. I only wanted to affect the letter. And as you can see here, that is not what happened. This got really messed up. It does not look good. And I would say that it does make this sweatshirt a bit unwearable, which I'm sad about because the front looks really cool. And doing these two acid washing methods, I really do like the effect of not trying to be so neat with getting the logo or design down on the fabric. So I prefer the Pretty Hate Machine method. And if I were to do this again, instead of using the outline of the drip, I would use this inside of the drip so that the fabric underneath would stay the color and then all the fabric around it would get affected. And I would use the misting spray bottle method. So I'm gonna hold on to this. You might see it again. I think part of the appeal of acid wash is the messiness. In the future, messy's better. Messy works. But like I said, unfortunately, I don't think that this sweatshirt is terribly wearable just because of the sleeve, but I thought of a cool idea of what I could do with it instead. We'll save that for the end of the video because now we have to move on trying the exact same design we just tried on the cropped sweatshirt, but now using spray paint instead. I used this fabric spray paint, Color Shots, and we are going to start with the white sweatshirt. Unfortunately, the sleeve was not long enough and the memento mori did not fit. So I think at this point we can call that a fail, but I still really like the phrase and I'd like to put it on something. So if you enjoy this video and you want to see some more cool stenciling, I will save that for a future video. Maybe with like a skull stencil as well, that'd be cool. For the drip on the front, I used my very precise eyeball method. Then I protected the rest of the fabric and taped down some black plastic because I did not want this to be messy. I only wanted the drip to be affected. And I recently bought this spray tent, so I'm spraying in my living room and this spray tent worked great. I think the stencil looks awesome. With the acid wash method, the drip looked like blood, and with this method, it looks like a drip of graffiti paint. I'm shocked that both came out really good, and I don't think I can say which one is a better method. I think they both work. It just sort of depends on what your style is. But for me, both methods I would absolutely do again. The only thing with this, because I had tape rolled underneath the stencil and the paint did bleed a tiny bit past the stencil, which I didn't mind, except for where it hit the tape, it created these like weird edges. I don't really know how to explain it, but you can see it on the shirt. In the places where there wasn't tape, it just bled as a gradient. And then where it hit the tape, it created like a sharp edge. So I would have to be careful of that again and probably wouldn't roll the tape underneath the stencil. So it's not perfect, but it is absolutely wearable. But the final test for this black spray paint will come in 72 hours because that's how long you are supposed to wait until you can wash it, which I'm glad that I read the back because I was about to put them in the wash kind of right away. So sometimes we read directions and sometimes we don't. I'm glad that this time I did. So at the end of the video, I will do a side-by-side comparison of all of the spray paint clothing items to see how the spray paint held up after being washed. Next, it is time to work on the skirt. I already taped it down and put all the extra plastic down before I started filming, so it's hard to see the vision, but the bigger butterfly is on the bottom here, and then there is a flock of butterflies up by the pocket on the other side. By the way, I just looked up what the proper term for a group of butterflies, or a flock as I called them, and there are many options. There is flutter, rabble, flight, or my personal favorite, kaleidoscope. Cute. Also, an important note when you're spraying, you want to make sure that you're spraying directly down onto the fabric and not at an angle. If you go at an angle, the spray could get under the stencil and make the lines really, really blurry, which is kind of what happened with the skirt. In some places, the lines are pretty crisp, and in other places, they aren't at all. You may also notice that I cut the hem off of this skirt to get some frayed ends. It came out okay. I think I could have improved on the technique a little bit. I also think it would have helped to have something in between the fabric. I did that with the acid wash. I did not do it with these first two items that I sprayed, but I think if I had a flat surface in between, it would have made the stencil sit more flush with the fabric, which would have then helped with any bleeding. But just like I predicted at the beginning of this video, I do think that the skirt is a little juvenile for me. I think there is a way to do a butterfly design that feels fashionable and age appropriate, but I think this particular design fell short on the age appropriate. I don't know, this might end up in the donation pile. Okay, here we are, the piece de resistance, the pinhead tank top. So I printed out the design I drew and got to cutting. I did decide to simplify the design a little bit just to make it easier to cut, but I still think it looks really cool. For the circles at the ends of the pins, I used this tool, which is not for this, but it's kind of for something similar. This is meant to cut circles into fabrics to then add grommets, which is for, you know, lacing ribbon or a corset string or something like that. But I was looking for a perfect circle. This was the size that I needed, so I used this tool. I may have broken it because I don't think it's supposed to go through plastic, but YOLO. It worked really well, so I don't regret it. And then I painstakingly used some box cutters to cut out all these little squares. It took a while, it was tedious, but I did a very good job, and I'm excited to see how this comes out on the shirt. And I was feeling pretty confident at this point since majority of what I had been trying had been working, but I also knew that some of these lines on Pinhead's head were very thin, so any amount of bleeding could really, really disrupt this design. I did also mean to leave some negative space for Pinhead's eye, but I completely forgot to put that piece of stencil down. Whatever, I still think it looks good, but in the future, I would probably have an eye. And regardless, I think it came out great. Though I may cut it into a crop top. We will see once I wash it how I'm feeling. Which brings us to the true test of this fabric paint. It is time to wash these items and see how the black spray paint holds up. I wasn't terribly confident that it would stay, and I do think it faded a little bit, probably more than a little bit on the skirt, but the other two clothing items I think held up very, very well with only a touch of fading. And with the Pinhead shirt especially, I think it gives it a more vintage feel. And as you can see here, I did cut it into a crop top. I pretty much only wear crop tops, so it made sense. But I would use this fabric spray paint again. I think what this video has taught me is that, like I said with the acid wash, probably the same with the spray paint as well, I don't want to do designs that I feel need to be so precise. I like a little bit of messiness, I like a little bit of bleeding, and I think that this like faded look leans into that as well. So you probably can expect some more stenciling and spray painting and acid washing from me and this channel. And thank you so much for joining me today. Out of the 5 items, I came away with 3 that I think are very wearable, 1 that I think will be loved by someone else, and 1 piece that I do believe was ruined by the messy lettering on the sleeve. I think the front is really cool, and it would be a shame to waste this clothing item. So I got to thinking, would this look cool as a pillow cover? I realize I have all of these graphic tees that I don't really wear. When it comes to t-shirts specifically, I either like a shirt that's really, really snug or super, super oversized, but I own a lot that falls somewhere in the middle. And so I am thinking you will see this blood drip sweatshirt again, along with some of my other graphic tees. And I can do a video making some custom pillowcase covers. I have so many pillows in my apartment, and it would be really fun to have some more options to trade out the designs every so often, especially around the holidays. I think that would be fun. Let me know your thoughts. And don't forget, if you are a geek of any kind, subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications, and comment down below which clothing item you like the best. And also comment down below other designs you would like to see, because that was so fun. I would do it again in a heartbeat. My name is Leah, and I'll see you soon. Peace out.
Let it go. 얼어붙어 like whoa. 띵하고 어지러워. I see. 한여름에도 넌 겨울. Yeah, 가을 콜라. Yeah, 너와 있을 때 I swear. 제가 먼저 zero 폭설한 그 chill there.